This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, so I'm going to call the meeting of the Manhan Rail Trail Committee on October 16th, 2023 to order. We just have a couple little quick business items, and then we can start the trail maintenance discussion. So first of all, do I have the minute approval of the September 18th, 2023 minutes? I sent them out with the agenda. Does anybody have any corrections or comments or other thoughts? If not, do I have a motion to accept the minutes of the September 18th meeting?
I'll motion.
Second? All in, what?
The first time I've ever done that.
I know. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstaining. All right, we just have one tiny bit of business. It was under new business. I think I sent it out with the agenda. But if not, I can read it, I think. Well, I'll read it anyway. My name is Lisa Hersey, and I'm a bookbinder working out of Cottage Street Studios. I would like to apply for Easthampton Cultural Count Grant, where I create books inspired by my favorite landmarks around Easthampton and turn them into a scavenger hunt, encouraging the public to explore and possibly appreciate these places in a new light. I am looking to place a small sign and 10 small books in a small plastic Ziploc style bag on the bike path on June 20th and remove them on June 24th. This coincides with the first day of summer and the weekend. In order to apply for this grant, I need a letter of support from the location that my project is approved. So, anybody have any comments? To me, it seems fine.
Sure.
It's very short.
It's only 4 days.
4 days.
And it's an arts project, so it's not a sign advertising a business or something else that's prohibited.
Okay.
We might just forewarn them, because there is some vandalism at times, just that,
Things disappear.
caveat emptor.
That's a good point.
Is this sentence here, in order to apply for this grant, is she asking for a letter of approval from us?
Yes.
But it sounds like the scavenger hunt possibly isn't only on the bike trail. It's maybe around
Right.
Easthampton.
Yeah,
So she has to ask permission from a few different people.
right.
Yeah.
It must be that one of the scavenger hunt locations is on the bike path. I think that's
Yeah.
probably what it is. It's not, they're all on the bike path, just one spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who's gonna write the letter of support?
I'll just write. I gave her like a preliminary. I think
Okay.
it's okay.
Okay.
And that's good. I can do that. Motion to approve, Lisa Hersey's, request. Motion seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Okay, on to maintenance. Wendy,
Okay.
take it away.
Well, thank you to the mayor for attending. I know you're busy. It's the end of a long day. And Jeff as well. Thank you.
And John Mason is here too.
Oh.
He's
Oh, I see. Hi, John. Thanks for tuning in. Basically, I'm gonna just make a few quick statements and then we'll get right to your opinion. I think I speak for the entire trail when I say that, or at least most of the people on the committee, that we feel strongly that the Manhan Rail Trail is one of the most valuable assets in the city and it's very important to keep the trail in good condition. But we have 3 challenges. One is the age of the trail. There are sections that are now 20 years old and sections need resurfacing. And they need to be resurfaced to be safe and accessible for all users. We can't have people with walkers or wheelchairs coming upon some of the route sections that have popped up through the trail. Also, it needs tree work. Again, every time there's a windstorm, we've got branches and trees coming down. And again, you can't have someone in a wheelchair going up the trail and there's a branch across the trail. There's no way that they're going to be able to get around that barrier.
Right.
The second challenge is a shortage of volunteers, and I know that this is a problem for many committees. And it's not just volunteers, it's the expertise. So we don't just do weeding and cutting of brush. It's also, assisting with writing grants, and it's doing social media, and, we deal with the press. So we've got public relations and outreach to other trail organizations. Many of us are on other subcommittees with Northampton or with other bigger trail organizations. The third challenge for us is limited funds. And, we rely primarily on donations. We have a small stipend, as you know, from the city, and we have some contributions from the mill owners, thanks to Barb's efforts to get that from them. So these three challenges have, we think, some solutions, and that includes the city, because we feel the city has the expertise, the staff, and the equipment, at least some of the staff and some of the equipment. I know that that's an issue we'll have to address. Also, we want to make it clear that the Friends of the Manhan Rail Trail and this committee would continue. So we would continue to support the project, we would continue to fundraise, we would continue to help gather letters of support for grant writing. So we would be there, the eyes and ears out on the trail. We're not going to go away. And thirdly, a solution is that right now, there is a ton of grant money out there directed at trails, accessibility, maintenance, walkability. There's just a lot of money out there. And I think we should take the opportunity to go after that. But again, we need help doing that. So the purpose of this meeting is to get some ideas about how to proceed and make this transition happen. And we sent you a document, and it's a negotiable timeline. We just threw that out as a starting point for the discussion, but we very much would like to hear your comments and your feelings about how to best go about making this transition.
Well, I mean, I think that this is a great time in the history of the trail and in the city to take a look at this, because I've been worried about like this and other committees that are run by volunteers who have expressed very, nicely, like we're moving or whatnot. I think that I read over all of the documents and the transition plan. I think that the 5-year term is too long if the Friends aren't going somewhere. I mean, that was one of my clarifying questions. If the Friends of the Rail Trail are staying, like things like getting letters and looking at grants, and if they're appropriate, I mean, you all hold that expertise and can get those letters, who to talk to. I think that's helpful. I also think that it belongs in the city. One of the big questions, and thank you, John, for jumping on, and Jeff is here. I'm going to assume he's here for the trail, but maybe you have another business.
I'm here for this, yeah.
Okay. And so I also think that this is a great time for the transition to happen, but also with an active board that we look at doing some, I don't know the lack of the word, visioning, feasibility study or whatnot, that line us up for grants. And one of the biggest questions back and forth is how to term or position the trail best. Is it as a park? Is it as a separate greenway or linear park that was mentioned in the, that's something separate because of all the dual uses? There are lots of grants for bike trails and rail trails that connect one part of a city to another, and that becomes even stronger because now it's a pretty new concept in America around like the High Line in Brooklyn, and very common in Europe, and the Rose Kennedy. And I've been looking at them since I got those documents. I think that there's a discussion to have that shouldn't hold up transition, that we should take a really good look and have, we got the study that Dan found us about just the overall quality. I think that's, I don't want to get too far. I think that's really helpful, and we had a B or whatnot, but it also, a part of that study was comparative. So we're doing a lot better than others, but worse. And I appreciate the B, I'll take a B. But like I when I read further, it was comparative, which is fine. But not only the condition, like the materials. Like I'd love to go after a grant that has a phasing of paving, but that also uses what's it called? Cool concrete. So it doesn't have the effect on the environment that black pavement has. And because of course it's got the green luxury tax, it's more expensive, but there are what do you call it? There are grants, wayfinding on the trail, how to connect it. I think that there's all these possibilities, trash receptacles that are like maybe bigger, but also prohibitive of household trash, or, I'm just off the top of my head, but I do think it's a good point to look at the trail with people who have a lot of experience and dedication to it, along with Park and Rec, DPW, and planning about what do we want it to be, and how can we plan. The other comment I wanted to make is maintenance, and so maintenance can't be in a capital plan, but we could build, and we would have to actually build a capital plan, almost like the departments have capital plans for items that are over 25,000. So the first step might be a visioning feasibility study, the maintenance of and what was I don't know if John and or Greg, who's not here, had a chance to take a look at it. I think he's on vacation. And the expenses of keeping it up, or the expenses of keeping it up. I mean, that's just a general fund. We've got to figure that out. I mean, I appreciate, the estimates and whatnot, but, and a routine of who, like, it's their job to go up and down the bike trail and cut trees or respond and be very clear about who's, doing the very, sure, there's this, what do we want to be, but the right now, I think that who's doing the day-to-day stuff or week-to-week stuff. I would like to, I haven't had a chance to talk to John or Greg, or Jeff a little more about this. Budget-wise, it's easiest for DPW to take it, the highway department to take it immediately, with the idea of there's a transition period. Maybe I was thinking maybe of 3 years. I don't think it's going to right away be as much of a challenge on the city budget. I think it will become, just everything costs more.
Right.
And we're also not just randomly picking ways to keep the trail in great condition. We have environmental concerns. I mean, that's, and what we're using and being more mindful of that. So, this isn't just something we go to the Home Depot and do. But in the immediate, like I think the transition of taking care of everyday stuff, and sooner rather than later, is a conversation with Park and Rec and with planning. But DPW, and I've talked to Greg about this, of the highway department treating it as a road. I think it'll end up as Parkland 97, chapter 97. Parkland, to date, we have not used money that automatically makes it a park. And when you say grants and trail grants, and does it have to be a park or not, it got very confusing fast. But I would like a weighing in of somebody who leads these projects, who've done it in different cities, to give really this group options. Like, so if we go towards a park grant, that's park money, it becomes chapter 97. Does that prohibit us from, listing it as a commuter trail? Does that prohibit us from, what does that entail? Does that hook what we do with if it's a park, the Park and Rec's budget, which is tight. And there's more staff involved in something like that. But the immediate, like the three things you were talking about, Wendy, I think it transitions to DPW and the highway. And I think we need to figure out somebody or some group that does a really hard look at linear parks versus greenways versus rail trails. Federal Department of Transportation and Federal Highway have some pockets of grants that have kind of been pushed my way for rail trails in particular. So, yeah, I mean, those are my comments when I was looking over. Yeah, I think, okay, so that, the visioning. Yeah, a couple of other things too, and I think it's, maybe Barbara, you know, the, on DCR, on our accessible paths, but also on their accessible paths, but also rail trails, we're not listed. The Manhan Trail is not listed. And yeah, I was updating.
We're not a DCR.
No, you don't have to,
Oh, okay.
like Norwalk and whatnot. So, you know, things like that, and taking a look at getting listed and joining with like wayfinding. I mean, that's anybody can find out, but you all have lives. You know, and Barbara's job at the city is not the rail trail.
Right. Well, we are under, what was the thing that you got? The
Oh,
national-
the National Recreation
Yeah,
Trail.
we're on the, that's what I was thinking.
And
I was like,
that's-
that,
That's
because
big.
yeah, that was big. And the DCR, and the DCR lists are very outdated. Like, they don't have.
So they have other trails besides DCR trails?
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would think the state would be able to give us some direction on how to characterize our trail.
Mm.
And also maybe Pioneer Valley, Commission. You know,
Yeah.
Jeff McCullough would be able to
right.
steer us.
And what the options are. I don't want to interrupt there's somebody online. who wants to-
Alexis, you had info?
Yeah, we're already on the MassDOT priority trails network, so I would strongly advocate for us being transportation oriented, because we also are reflected on many interstate projects as transportation already.
So that does make sense to you, Alexis, from your. Okay.
Yeah, I work at Mass Bike, and I just went to, along with Steven, I went to Golden Spike this weekend. But yeah, we are already listed on the priorities trail network that Pete Sutton at MassDOT came out with earlier this year. I can put a link in the chat.
Thank you. I think that's the other is when I was read the documents and then looked at other rail trails and whatnot, and the grant opportunities to maintain trails and then link them through a city or town is always something. And I know we've had discussions about pulling that to add to the rail trail, but also a part of that study was to make it the materials as usable as possible for transportation, for walking, for rail trails, for, you know, and commuting. So that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad we're a priority. And I think that our rail trail traffic is going to go up as soon as, I mean, one, it's just going to go up, but with that trail coming down from Northampton, I mean, it's great. But it does put more wear and tear on our trail. And then the other thing that factors into here, and I think I'm hoping it's a funding source, is sooner or later, the Dunkin' Donuts on that corner will go in. Yes, they're still out there. And they've indicated they would help us with the trailhead or do something around the Dunkin' Donuts. They're putting a stoplight. The Dunkin' Donuts themselves is putting a stoplight there.
Really?
Yeah, I know, it's a lot of donuts. But
I just read the state is putting a bike lane
Yeah.
from our.
Mhm.
That's what,
right?
that's what,
Yeah.
That's what she's
that's what she was
Oh, that's
talking
part
about.
of the whole
Traffic.
Yeah, and
project.
that's,
That's
I
Mass DOT.
maybe Alexis or Jeff can correct me, but I think Mass DOT is paying for that
Yeah.
connector. I mean, I know we don't have any match there, right?
they've asked us about maintenance of that lot, the parking lot. I mean, maybe that's a next discussion. This-
Well, that's funny because I emailed them that question today. So who's gonna
Right, and
maintain
they're-
that lot?
Yeah.
If
I
you're
mean,
gonna
they're on
rebuild
site.
it, that's great, but is that gonna be our responsibility?
Right, which again goes to your point about professional maintenance and having a strong advisory committee. And the Energy Advisory Committee is walking us through the path of electro aggregation. Like, sure, it's the city that signs off on it and signs the DPU regulations, but they're a strong advocacy, like they're a committee, but they really advocate to the city about we should do this or we shouldn't do this. And I'm glad to hear that the Friends would remain the same. And stay involved. So I think the idea, I do think that 5 years, I mean, unless there were very specific reasons, I think 5 years is a long transition. I worry about that a little bit. And that would also be, not that we couldn't do stuff before, but the 5 years would be 2029. And in 2028, 29, the landscape for these grants really change because you're seeing the wind down of the bipartisan infrastructure grant and federal mass highway, which brings money into state. You're at the tail end. So, I mean, we have some opportunities to apply for grants or look at funding. And if we don't get it the first round, we have time to apply again, which is always nice to have that. Yeah.
So when would you see, what would a realistic transition date, a start date be, in your opinion?
I mean, when I talk to Greg about it and just how they're staffed, I don't see it happening like stuff's, I think it should be very specific about what you guys do and what's needed beyond what you do now. And maybe, and I don't know, when we're doing that before January, or at least starting it before January, and maybe we look at the transition, like identify parts and I start transitioning February, March, that's the first quarter, April. April 1st, just to start. I mean, like, you know, slowly, because Greg is gonna have to hire up. He has most of the equipment now, but we can put equipment. It's easier to put this kind of equipment into building operations under DPW because it can be used, I mean, a lot of it can be used just for regular roads.
Can I? So, in our earlier discussion when Greg was here and Jeff was here, one thing that we really thought would make a lot of sense because the park department's short, the DPW is short, that maybe there could be a seasonal position hired, you know, kind of to really to be on the bike path all the time. And if they don't need to be here all the time, maybe they'll go up to Mount Tom North. But to have a position, and I even have someone who's interested in this position if it was to come about, somebody who I think would be good. It just would, we have our senior tax worker out there and she used her hours up by like August. So we've been paying her to be out there to keep an eye on things and do brush. But I mean, she can't really do it. And another problem with her right now is she's either walking or she's riding her bike or she's driving. There's really no way for her to get quickly from place to place. Now, I was at the Cape, this is, everybody's heard this already, but I think we really need, we need like a little.
Oh, really, Barbara? You can just have a piece of equipment,
Yes.
pictures.
And we have a trails grant, coming up. This is the Mass Trails Grant. Applications are available in November and they're due in February. And one of the things that you can buy is equipment.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, this picture shows one with a snowplow on it. These are just.
That looks like the one that plows the bike path where I live.
Yeah.
They do East Street to Fort Hill.
Yeah. So I don't
We
know.
still don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mystery flower.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 of them now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
The Yeti squad.
right. I mean, the big things that we do like right now are mowing.
Yep.
Trash pickup. And then general, like trimming, you know, vines, and there's fencing repairs, and there's graffiti cleanup. And if we had somebody who was out there dedicated, that's their job, is somebody who has the skills to fix a fence. That I don't have to recruit somebody from my house to fix a fence.
No names, yeah.
Right. That they could clean graffiti off things, because we've had quite a bit of graffiti issues lately. And
Yeah.
if we could not pull from the existing park or from the existing highway, but have somebody whose job it
That would be
is
amazing.
to be on the trail and do that stuff. And if there wasn't enough to do, we have other parks that I'm sure that, that person.
Yeah, and I think that there's I mean, and this has come up between, John, Jeff, Greg and I around, parks and the focus and the type of skills, I mean, every time I drove, and this weekend I drove through, Nonatuck Park, and just the amount of maintenance, and, it looks like it's nature and you're out in something uncut or curated, and it's very curated. And it's not something you just plunk your lawnmower on, and there's a lot of considerations that takes up a tremendous amount of time. And then when the pool comes and stuff like that. So I think the city has to have a conversation about what is park and rec and what are trails and how we categorize them. And my thing with the trails, is that it's as flexible as it can be. So we're not narrowed into the park and rec bucket, because that's coming up on the main street. It's very hard if something is park, and I don't know, we want to do a bike rotary in 7 years or 8 years. Once it's a park, if we were taking land that was a park, we would very likely have to find similar land, and it's like, 2 times the amount to take, and it's rightfully very complicated, because you don't want to be able to switch out that land. But, if there are trail grants that are with Mass DOT, then we should access that and start treating it more as a commuter kind of whole, all-wheel kind of park to keep it up, and the materials, to get a Mass DOT or a federal DOT grant for that, or environmentally conscious material, but also helping with carbon sequestration. I don't know how to spell that. Like, you're trapping the carbon, and the black, it doesn't give off what.
Sequestration.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm horrible at crosswords, to say the very least.
The only thing I would say is, I feel personally, and the committee knows this because I'm always harping about this, that our most immediate need now is repaving some sections. They're just really bad.
Yep.
So I don't know how that would figure into the transition and the timeline, but if I can just at least get that on the table for consideration when you have a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's certainly some quick things that DPW can do. I don't know where we are with asphalt right now, because I don't know where the window is.
The end of the season, I know.
Yeah, it's the end of the season, so I don't want to commit to that. I mean, but I think we also should take a big, just a walking survey, right? I mean, you can see where you spray painted and there's holes and bumps and
Right.
whatnot.
Right.
And see what we can do with what we have now. And maybe there's asphalt left. Sometimes we have asphalt left over,
Right.
after we repair what we can. I just don't know how much we cut down the amount of asphalt, because some of our big, places where we have to fill in potholes are being paved. So, I think Elise should just put something else in the chat. I just can't.
So in the past, we've done sections, and the DPW they've pulled up the pavement, they've taken out the roots, and then they'll arrange for like True Hearts,
Yep.
and then we have paid it. So we've done that in a few places, but even to do a section like from here to here, it's a lot of money.
Yeah,
And
so
there
we're
is-
hoping there could be cost savings.
Yeah.
We would have whoever the subcontractor is to do it. I mean, they would pull up the paving, and we would add it to, I don't know, it'd be interesting to see if we could use chapter 91. But we have, like, again, that's building ops, that's highway department. I mean, while it's expensive, we have you know, the power of just sheer volume. I mean, yes, it's expensive, but that's not a big amount when we're trying to do 2 and 3 miles of paving or skimming or whatever to grab some of that.
We have had people get tossed off their bikes,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
so that's bad.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally see that.
You're one of them?
No, I
Uh,
was trying not to talk before. I wanted to hear what John's reaction to some of this was, because as the planning department, I don't have staff, so I don't have a budget, so I was mostly listening.
Mhm.
The couple things I have heard Greg say before about this discussion in general is that as soon as you start talking about any kind of winter maintenance, you're no longer just talking about a seasonal person. You're talking about a person. You're probably actually talking about 2 people. And then you're adding equipment in to actually, once you start the idea of maintaining the trail in the winter for commuter related activities, it has to be consistently there. So Greg's on vacation, and I'm not trying to speak for Greg, but I
No,
heard him say that,
it's a good point.
you know, as we fully transition, like a seasonal position is not enough to really take care of the trail year round. So I just wanted to chime in on that. But then the other thing, I went to it was a Mass DOT conference, but they definitely highlighted a lot of success stories about Mass Trails. And I think there is one other alternative that you guys haven't talked about yet, which is potentially instead of buying a piece of equipment with the next grant cycle, and the planning department, I would be willing to have a discussion about trying to fund, it's a conditions assessment. And so they have a protocol. So Mass DOT and Mass Trails has a sort of a checklist of what you would do to assess the condition of their trail. So you'd have some kind of professional consultant look at that, do the assessment. It's like a comprehensive assessment of the whole trail. And they come up with sections, drawings, and they come up with the high priority areas, and they come up with cost estimates to do the repairs. And Mass Trails funds that repair if it's done in accordance with their procedures and expectations. So they were highlighting that these grants can go up to 200,000. And that would be one other alternative, whether it's this coming grant cycle or the next one, is to get the conditions assessment done, try to get a grant to fix the worst parts of the trail, then hand over sort of a repaired trail for that continuous maintenance going forward, because that would be something other than buying a piece of equipment to consider. And I know, Barbara, I think you had talked to PVPC, but they cast out kind of far, and I think it was in 2 years, they said they might be available to do that. So if we could speed up the assessment part.
Right, but in the so are you talking about through this?
Yes. Yep.
So there's no reason that you couldn't have more than one application though.
Yeah, with all the grant, I mean, that's the advice that they give everybody for any grant is if it's hard enough to get one per municipality, and if you put in 2, you're simply just competing against yourself.
So but if, that's great, but you still have a trail that's here and we don't really have a way to, get on, to move around and do the repairs and do things. So, I do think some equipment is needed, whether we use some that we already have or whatever, but we can't expect somebody to be out there walking it, or driving on
drive his pickup down.
or drive a pickup truck on it, which I don't really think you should really do unless you have to. So, we do have to think about, it seems like to me that this isn't a piece of equipment we probably should have had a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I think both things are super important, but in the real immediate, it would be nice to have.
Well, how much is that piece of equipment?
Well, this one right here is it's 25,000, but I don't know. It probably doesn't include.
Right, and then you have to get.
Greg would have to help because I got some John Deere prices. I don't like those at all, but he probably has some sources and can.
But we're not talking over 100,000.
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
No, it would be.
So either it's a
I'd
2-tier
say-
grant or.
25.
And DPW is looking for those sort of things anyways. Didn't we get something for the Park Street multi-use, or we need to get for the Park Street?
Greg applied through that grant, and got a snow removal, there's a snow removal equipment, some type of snow removal piece of equipment. So that might, it doesn't solve the Kubota, the access directly, but I think it's a question of, for everybody, so as the committee and as city officials, like what is the priority? What would be the biggest thing for the grant dollar? Whether it be a piece of equipment or whether it be getting, $175,000 worth of
Right.
paving repaired, done swiftly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
You know, in the
maybe
next
there's
grant.
other sources. I just,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
I
other
think
grants.
not that that's not a lot of money, but I mean, that's a great, and if Greg was here and John's probably got a list, and I know you have a list of things for free cash. I mean, if we're that far behind having a piece of that equipment, honestly, that piece of equipment could be used a million different places
Yeah.
in the city. And, so it wouldn't be a one-time thing. It's funny, we were talking about plowing, so I've heard a lot back and forth and even had some arguments, heard arguments on the trail about, is the trail supposed to be plowed? Isn't it bad for the environment? Why can't you just do one half and not the other half? And of course, these are like, the Yetis come out and that, they usually are up and done way before I'm up, but that would be also a question I have. I don't care either way. I just have heard so many different takes of, should it be plowed? Should it not be plowed?
We've been hearing those for years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there was always a concern back in the day that if you
Yeah.
plow it, then and if it gets icy and,
Yeah.
do you have to sand it if you plow it? Right now, it gets done magically.
Mhm.
We don't do it.
No.
Well, then doesn't it beg the conversation about what the trail is used for? Are we trying to provide a means of commuting all year? And then you just have to say to the people who want to cross-country ski, we have too many people that commute to Northampton on their bikes in January, which is actually a true thing, because I
Yeah.
know a lot of those people.
Yeah, no,
And-
to these meetings.
I think that's a larger question, right, of this kind of study, like a vision. Compared to conditions, we all know there are, what Barbara's bringing up are things that shouldn't wait 3 years. But then the other side of this, I don't, the city would look from guidance to the Friends as an advisory group and maybe bringing in a consultant, like, okay, what's the model we're adopting? And depending on what the community wants. I keep talking about it as a road and commuter. But I don't, there's 16,000 people and people, who are in different groups have all sorts of ideas, but it's really our decision to make.
Didn't Northampton just bypass this whole conversation and they just plow it? And that's how it is, right?
think
They
they
put
plow-
theirs in and
I
then
don't
they
think
just,
they plow the whole thing.
I don't know if they
I think
plow
they
the
did do it
downtown,
for like
well, the
school
downtown.
groups.
the most
Yeah.
heavily traveled.
Yeah, downtown is plowed.
Yeah.
If
And
people are
again-
using it for commuting, but you've got, well, eventually there'll be Southampton and you've got the Northampton connection. If those aren't plowed, people are gonna be restricted in their capacity to commute. And we've had mild winters. And so, with the plowing that's occurred in natural melting, it's been mostly, pavements exposed, so people are able to use it for that.
Right.
But in a heavier winter like we used to have, it wasn't realistic. And the issue of ice is, you can't solve because of your adjacent to wetlands. So if we create expectations and then we can't fulfill them because the climate shifts, that's not a great place to be. And
Your point is well heard by me. It's a matter of plowed or not plowed or wanting to make it, what do you treat that trail with, considering what it goes through?
And then what's the environmental impact
Yeah.
of plowing along the trail?
Yeah.
What's the impact on wildlife?
Mhm.
I'm already concerned about the impact of, we've got a lot of lighting, which is great to some degree, but then, there are issues with the light pollution and how that's affecting pollinators and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't want to get too, I think that the downlighting, dark sky movement, compared to what we adopt, which I think are state standards, I don't think that they're restrictive enough for where our bike path and some of our roads go through. I think it's too bright, so yes, the candle feet is correct, like we had with the street lights, but they're, that is a regulation by the state that cities and towns adopt that consider the whole state, not, roads like we have and bike trails that we have that go through very, tender, fragile environmental places. And I just think, I know Somerville has a lower, has a more strict, dark sky ordinance that, I don't know who, we looked at it at one point, maybe Cassie and I looked at it. But things like that, you know, John, you've been very quiet, thoughtful. Just noticing.
Well, I'll just chime in. I know we want to move off that, because I think it is a question that we have to ask the community and ask ourselves is what, maybe it's not the same as it was in 1995, you know, the purpose of the bike path, but, and maybe Alexis can speak to this, but from a Mass Bike perspective, but having attended that Mass DOT conference, as they start to unveil more connections, the idea of a network is what the state is starting to discuss as these priorities is a walking and bicycling network. And so we are, I think, going to be having a conversation about making this both. It's a multi-use path is what it really is. And so, it's a shared use path, whichever term you use, but the priority is creeping up towards making it available as an alternative mode of transportation to and from point A, B, and C. And so the last things I just wanted to say is that, you know, the vision, so is like the use, and then there's existing and future connections. So that has been kind of a theme since our 2008 master plan, which this committee had input in, is making connections. One of the biggest ones that we're going to have success with is connecting the bike path to the school. So in this case now it's a K through 8. In 2008 there was maybe a hint of that, but we are making a direct connection from the rail trail to Mountain View School. And so as you start to think of a network, you'd be able to get to a school, you'd be able to get to the bike path, you'd be able to get the bike path to Route 5, and now you'll be able to get from Route 5 to Northampton. And as this connection unfolds, I think the expectation is going to be more towards figuring out some kind of winter maintenance option so that's available. Lights, I think the discussion I heard like at Mass DOT was there is some expectation for bikers to have their own lights on their bikes. And that would be one way to alleviate, you know, excessive lighting, just to have the path lit. At that public hearing for the Route 5 connection, Northampton actually chimed in and said they don't want lights on that stretch. So it would push the burden for bicyclists, especially, to have a light of their own as a way to offset, you know, how much do we need to light these things? But I'm not trying to speak for Alexis because I know she works for Mass Bike, but I was just trying to throw out that perspective.
The last thing I'd say about the plowing is Barb and I get the emails from the public. It comes into info. I have to say the majority want it plowed. It's overwhelming, in my opinion, it's overwhelmingly in favor of plowing.
Because I think a lot of people just want to walk.
Or they want to ride,
snowshoes.
or walk or ride. Yeah,
And I think
walking their dog.
you know, you get a snowstorm and you don't even get any much snow and people are out there and then the footprints all freeze and you can't really, lots of times you can barely cross country ski it because it's all post hole and, you know, people are just walking on it. So.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like that program Park and Rec. Someone's always going to complain about it.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I was like, John, that's your life, huh? So I see, I mean, the next steps is a detailed transition plan. Like, this is what you guys do. This is what happens. Like, you look at the fences, where are the easy things that maybe we can ground down, like we did on the sidewalks in Union Street, to get something, you know, smoothed out, a condition study. But the big thing for me is what the lists of, what are the things that the friends do now? What are the things that they want to do and they don't have the volunteers to do or whatnot, or funds or whatever it is to do, and having sit down with DPW and highway and figure out when they can do that, when we need to hire somebody, and definitely look at a longer term visioning process. So whoever ends up with this person. Like, I think we start with DPW, makes the most sense, but maybe it does become another part of Park and Rec after the visibility and the budgets are shifted. I think those are longer conversations away, but in the immediate, what I'm hearing is that the list of things that need to be done, things that should be done but aren't because of the volunteer nature of the trail, and how we can start shifting that. And if we could work on that, and then with the start, I mean, I'm sure there'll be some things we can do before that, but a final start date, like official transition, that would start July 1st of 2024 and go through 2027 and have it 3 years. And that also can help us with some, I think it'll start giving us some real ideas about these bigger grants or newer grants or, you know, whatever. And be able to show, we've always been very successful with grants that we've shown, we put the money in to see what the conditions are. We've put the money in and gotten public input about visions. We've, you know, people have taken road trips and gone to see, you know, or done a day on the Northampton to, you know, Manhan Rail Trail or something like that, and know what people want to see or not. Plowing, you know, and, you know, taking that and, you know, making a subsection of the rail trail and figuring out where it goes in department wise. But also environmental impacts. Like if you plow, what happens? How do you treat ice on the rail trail? And lighting, and is there special lighting requirements because of the environmental sensitivity of the area, and that there might just be parts that aren't lit at all because, you know, like, you know, like, that's well beyond my knowledge, but.
So we're gonna be into budgets like really soon. How do you feel that we should attack that?
I think the list of individual things that need to be done with the list that we were provided, that you send out about some things you kind of knew what they cost and not. I think that's a definite sit down with Greg and Jim, and to figure out with the official transition starting at the beginning of the fiscal year, what are we going to have to add into their budget? And I mean, it sounds like there's something there around staffing. You know, but
I mean, we contract out like mowing. It's like, would they take that over, or would we just continue to do that? You know, that would be a conversation to, like, trash. Do we continue to pay Riverside, or will DPW take it over? You know, I mean, that, those are like, just.
those are the conversations of how
So we
fast,
need to sit-
you know, what they can do without additional staff. Like some stuff. And then, you know, what does the job description? I mean, it's not like you're hiring a labor for DPW or, you know, maintenance person down in the park. It's very independent. You have to have some idea, a little more, I think, knowledge of environmental concerns. Like, we don't have a job description, and that goes through city council. But, you know, can a laborer position in DPW at least start helping with, can we focus, is there another one of those positions we can add hours to do the basic, you know, is it trash? You know, what's, but, you know, I would, and, okay, so if it's trash pickup, you know, is there, you know, how that would work, or what we would do? Is there a dumpster that's closer to the bike path that we add to our USA contract, all sorts of things like that. And get an idea from DPW, and Michelle can, I mean, everybody's kind of eyeballing their next fiscal year budget already. And we still have opportunities too with the equipment, and not that we would or wouldn't go after that grant. I mean, free cash is going to be really tight this year, but while that's a lot of money, that's not like the $385,000 dump truck that DPW needs. It's just a different scale, or, you know, yeah, whatever it is, or a fire truck. I mean, it's just a different kind of spending. And we can consider that, take some easy stuff out. That's interesting about the trail and I always wonder where people, I get not a lot of feedback, mostly when I'm walking on the trail with window, what people want to see. So that's interesting. It's very interesting.
So next step for us would be to meet with the two department heads and
I would think just with Greg.
or just with Greg at this
And
point.
maybe
Okay.
Jim Kiza from Highway Show, you know, comes, or Michelle definitely, who kind of organizes the budget and is probably starting to pull numbers for next
Okay.
year. I think that that's the next meeting with Greg and Michelle,
Okay.
to say, I mean, you guys gave a very detailed list and what happens and how it happens, what they can take on, what they would need additionally and kind of that back and forth.
Okay.
But I also think that while the maintenance plan that I was given, I don't know if other friends group have, not an MOU, but a description of what they will continue to provide, like, there's Friends of COA, there's Friends of the Pond, to be kind of weighing in on, I mean, this group and has much more the finger on the pulse of trails and rail trails and use than the people in the city. And, I don't know, maybe it's just the description of what the Friends do. I don't know if it matters or not, but.
Yeah, there's always, there's the committee and there's the friends.
Right.
The friends are the, that's the money.
The fundraiser.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, and then there's always been the concern with our committee is that some of us have been here since we did that first walk on the trail in 1994. And we, except for Alexis and, we've had a few people join and good people, but for the most part, if Wendy decides to move to Florida or when I retire, it's like, when we step away, what's going to happen?
We don't want to leave.
It's not just the trail that's actually.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yes. Well put. Yeah. Reminded every day.
That kind of was like the impetus of us.
Yeah. We want to
Starting-
be preemptive. We don't want to just walk
Leave.
away and
And the pond committee is starting to do something very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, again, and I think it's great timing because thank you for those of you who've been here since step one on that trail. But it's also the original vision. And there were also probably considerations then and through the years where somebody has a great idea and it's like, actually 6 years ago, we thought we could do that. And it really doesn't work with XYZ or, whatever it is. Like colored, fences. That's a big one I always hear about. Metal colored fences.
I have one other thought, just on so the Friends of would be staying in place. Are you guys a 501c3?
Yes,
So,
we are.
so that's the fundraiser element and that would stay in
Correct.
place. And Alexis, I keep referring to you because you're so quiet today, but like the evolution of the Manhan Rail Trail Committee, a lot of other communities have a bicycle and pedestrian committee who have a broader view. Like you guys have mission accomplished creating the rail trail. And that's what a lot of other communities go forward with, a bicycle and pedestrian committee who branches out from just the rail trail and starts to look at the other bicycle and pedestrian opportunities within the city. And that kind of the network kind of branches out from the rail trail. So,
that's nice.
that would be kind of a natural progression from just the Manhan Rail Trail Committee to some kind of bicycle and pedestrian committee. Because a lot of and Holyoke has a very active one. And I know, just for example, the mayor mentioned the Dunkin' Donuts proposal on Route 5. That committee was actually, they're pretty well organized and they attended the meetings and they wrote letters sort of to help guide some of the implementation of what was being discussed. And so that's one element that we could see in the future is evolving this committee to that different mission.
Yeah,
I thought Alexis and we chatted about it one time briefly, but I think that's a natural
necessary.
progression. Yeah.
Yeah.
That way the bike trail isn't its own thing. It connects out through the
Correct.
streets and
Right.
And the Friends stays active and that money it's almost like the ECA board. I mean, this is not an uncommon structure in the city where there's a 50c3 dedicated to arts and dedicated to the pond and whatnot. And it's very easy to do. There's no issue with the, money flow or whatnot. And there are donations that, are given every once in a while that it's better to have it with 50c3 than the city. Because it just is a plate of spaghetti.
Yeah.
So next steps would be the meeting with Greg, starting to look at, so he has an idea of what his budget looks like adding this on. And then thinking about, I think that's going to take a while and focus on, but then maybe once we get into July or whenever, looking at a condition study and looking at more of a visioning kind of what do people want it to be. I mean, maybe they just, maybe they want it to be like it is now, or go back to 94. I mean, who knows? But to get that input, and that really helps with grants. That I never really thought that so many studies, feasibility studies, would bring us so much money. But Jeff was right. They're boring, but they bring in the money. Yeah, and there's some other, other things will pop up about, adding on to the bike path and what makes sense. So it would be good to have that information down the line. And we'll have Greg. Greg will have no problem giving you a price on that piece of equipment. Everybody's very excited about it and about equipment like that. And maybe there's some ideas too that how do you get around on the bike path? Is it a small electric Kubota, or somebody came and gave us a trial of these very nimble little electric vehicles that the back of them could be a pickup truck with tools in it, or and they were very reasonable. I don't know how they do on the unplowed trail, but it was really very flexible to get in and out.
Well, they're not mutually exclusive.
Right. No.
I mean, you could have one thing that's purposeful for 6 to 8 months out of the
Yes.
year.
And I think at the end of the day, the unsaid thing here is that when this transition starts to happen and as it progresses into the second, third year, it does free this committee up to do the other things. The writing, the getting grants, looking for connectivity spots and those kinds of things that we do. But honestly, more than half of our meetings and our time is spent on trail maintenance. Right now.
And I'm looking forward to, like, when I'm not in the office anymore, like, if there's ever anything that comes up, they always call me and I have to figure out, like, all right, we got a tree down, we've got graffiti, we've got, it shouldn't be coming through my office. It
What are
shouldn't
we
be.
gonna do when you're not here? We always call you. I mean, at least I know where you live. I can just hike up there.
We're not gonna let her retire, that's all.
Yeah, it'll be a discussion as to who answers, who do people call, who does the police department reach, who's the contact person when it's not my office anymore.
And for what I'm proposing on DPW to take lead here, Greg is in school to be an arborist.
Oh,
And as far as the, taking down trees, it seems to me it would be dispatched to DPW. I mean, they come out for trees with lines and whatnot and involved with.
yeah, they've been great, really.
Yeah.
When I was at the Cape, I talked to because there was a guy on the trail, he was weed whacking, and we were talking about, he does like a whole section from Nickerson State Park to the Wellfleet line, all by himself. But he said he would really highly suggest that if we ever could find the most perfect person, it would be somebody with arborist. Some skills would be really helpful because, you would see things, it would be a big, advantage.
Speaking of this, I was going to save this for later, but I didn't make the last meeting, but I was commissioned at 2 meetings ago to drive the trail and take pictures of all the sketchy trees and limbs, which I did do, by the way, and I haven't emailed it. But I went from the beginning to the end. Actually, I went from here to downtown. And just in that stretch, there's 20 sketchy limbs and trees that could fall on the path in the next year or 2.
Well, I mean, that's another reason to professionalize it too, because some of the things we want to cut down.
It's a safety. It's safety.
I mean, it is safety, but it's cutting trees on that bike path, John, I'll tell you, between people who live on it and Eversource, and it is not what you would think is easy.
Yeah. Well, that's why the arborist.
Yeah, would be great. Alicia has her hand up.
Alexis?
Alexis, I'm sorry.
Thank you. We already instigate system in Easthampton on the website for like issues like street maintenance and whatnot.
You're breaking
You're
up.
breaking up
Yeah.
really bad.
We can.
I'm sorry. I'll go again.
Try again.
Repeat it?
Okay. I was asking if you already, don't we already have a ticketing system on the city of Easthampton site for maintenance in general?
Well, I had set up a kind of a little thing that we could use, you know, if somebody calls in, you know, David and I had worked on
Mhm.
something. I haven't really used it very much.
A form.
I'm just thinking that it should be separate from the trail, that we could put on the trail website, the link to the city's ticketing system.
There is a report it
Yep,
thing.
there's a
Yeah,
report,
that's what I'm referring to, yeah.
and,
I don't know where that goes.
it goes to a general mail. Lindsay, I think, has access to it. But we're also thinking about having IT has that like help list or that the trouble list. And if we can put other tickets into that, they get disseminated
Okay.
much quickly. So as soon as it sees rail trail, it goes to, Greg or, you know, Michelle or whatnot. And then to make it clear that at least for the next few years, DPW is taking lead, that there's signs that says, if you're seeing something and like, please email DPW or call DPW or let, you know, the non-emergency line and whatnot. So people could either call immediately or take a picture and email it and saying, this is what we found. I mean,
Right.
we sometimes get those pictures in the mayor's office. It's been a while. But
Yeah, I get them a lot too.
Yeah.
And the police will send stuff over.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a way to organize that
Right.
a little more than a little more concise and better is something we're seeking to do across all the city departments. So we can track when something comes in, who took care of it, how long did it take, or nobody touched it because we all thought somebody else was doing it. We all thought Barb was doing it. And Barb's the default.
I could say that again.
Yeah.
My husband said, no, I'm not gonna do it.
Yes.
All right.
Well, thank
So,
you.
Yeah, well,
That's been great.
yeah, we can work with Greg and really get things going, just
Okay.
with budget time right on our heads, you know, coming up really soon.
So can I ask a clarification question? So do you foresee going forward that there's a likelihood that sort of the specific rail trail committee will transition to that kind of more pedestrian cyclist committee?
I think that's really, I mean, it's taken me 6 years to get there, but I really do think that's a community decision. You know, I mean, when you think about, like, I think that's what I'm talking about. Like, so there's a condition thing we want to get of the condition of the trail, accessibility and whatnot. So we have a prioritized list of what we can take care of. But I think the other is, and I feel this way actually about large parts of the city's operation, that it's time to go back out and vision. Like, what do people, like in 1994, you guys walked the trail and went through a process. And I think about what happened in Mill Pond and the, you know, what was it, 2010, 2011 behind the mills. Like, that was all very community driven. I mean, when we purchased open space, when we did, that wasn't because Jeff liked that piece of land. That was because a lot of people lobbied and said, this is why it should be on the list. This is why we should extend the bike path. I mean, that it's really public driven. And I would, you know, do I think it's a possibility? Sure, I think it's a possibility, but I think more of a public process to really take a look at what people expect. And I think it should just be about the bike path and trails, because I think it's very different than a park or recreation. I don't know if people, I think it should be specific to the trails that we have, the bike trails that we have now. And I know Conway School of Landscaping did a little bit of work for us, and to continue that, to see what the best, you know, I could see, I don't know, but I do think that the rail trail is a very unique, very valuable part of Easthampton. And so half of me says it shouldn't be a part of a bigger committee because we don't want to lose it in the pipe pedestrian bikes. But the other is, I know when we pull things together like that in a large topic, it's easier to get money, and we can go for a bigger grant, and then it's lined out of, we'll spend this money on the Manhan Rail Trail. So
And also, as we're thinking more about connections from the
Yeah,
rail trail, like
exactly.
with Union Street, we're gonna have, you know,
Mhm.
so I mean, it all inevitably ties
It
in.
does connect. Yeah, no, I really think that's this, the friends, the committee itself, planning, but the people in Easthampton, you know, and around and like Mass Bike, people who are shareholders. I think that's the process that we need to go through. And I think it would be helpful too, because our climate action plan, which looks at a whole bunch of things environmentally throughout the city, will be done when? We've had our first public hearing,
March.
So, you know, we'll have a plan, climate action plan that will technically be okay for 5 years, but best for 2 years. And that should feed into the transition. If there's any crossover between rail trail or that, you know, give us a little impetus to a little context and to go into a more public process of doing that. But yeah, I'd be curious.
I can say I spoke with Rail Trails a few weeks ago, and even the large national organization of Rails to Trails is starting to think about these on-road connections too. And they are now supporting in all of their webinars and grant writing efforts, like net infrastructure.
Interesting. Good. I think we have immediate things to do that can be done. And we know the beginning of the official transition period will include dollars and shifting of responsibilities to DPW. And I'll figure out where that money comes from. Or not. One less police.
Well, we have some money too in the Friends budget.
Yeah. But I think that should be, I mean, that money, if you're not paying it out directly, I'm not feeling great about 501c3 money coming generally into, I think it should be dedicated and spent by those who collected the donation. And when you free up as a committee, I don't know, maybe you want to do a celebration, or maybe there's signs, or I don't know, whatever you guys want to do.
Kiosk or benches, or, I mean, I think.
An upgrade instead of a maintenance thing.
Yeah, I think the committee should hold on to that money. And I think it's more genuine to the purpose that it was collected. Yeah.
Holden? Oh.
He's muted.
Are you muted?
We can't hear you.
He's unmuting himself.
See that? It looks like he's
Working the computer.
He's trying to.
Now, is that better?
Yes,
Yeah.
we got you.
Hi, I'm new to this group. I'm Holden. I just had a question. There's been some discussion about the conditions assessment that might be needed for some of these grants. And I was just wondering if I don't know, a link or something could be shared to learn more about that.
Yeah.
I was looking for it earlier.
Looking
I'd
for it
have to dig it up.
Yes.
It's available somewhere. I couldn't find it quickly.
We can get it out to the committee.
Because there had been some previous ones done.
There was, what, the one from Pioneer Valley?
2016, yeah.
Pioneer
Yeah, that
Valley Planning
was-
Commission.
I have a big poster
Mhm.
in my office. And then there was the thing that Dan just sent out, Dan Murphy.
I didn't see that.
Okay, that was just an overall. like,
Yeah.
Comparison.
That was,
Survey, yeah.
you know, we gotta be,
So we gotta make sure we
We got to be
connect
close.
properly, because I don't think we have his email on our committee, so just make sure we.
Yeah, I don't,
Maybe he can email you, Barb. You can get it from Jeff.
yeah, no, what specifically are we?
the condition assessment and Mass DOT
That
maybe
he,
funding
that
that.
Jeff was
Oh,
talking about.
okay, then Jeff needs to, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I'll
happy
put
to
my-
kind of send you an email asking kind of to figure out what PVPC had previously done. And if there's a way that, I was kind of curious if PVPC, if they were separately funded, whether they could do it faster. Because I think they said it was part of their unified work program,
Mhm.
which is a application, and they put you in a long line in a queue. If we can get ahead of that somehow and get a conditions assessment done, I think that would be one option for that next grant round, is to see if we could get the conditions assessment completed and get a cost estimate and make that an application to Mass Trails to do the actual repairs. But might be getting ahead of myself.
No, it's good.
So,
It's important.
Just have to try to
One of the
get that
biggest,
per-
of
that
the
out.
conversations we heard, it's one of the biggest immediate concerns is
Right.
getting money to fix that trail, because we can't do it in small 10-foot sections. There's a lot of sections that have tree impacts.
mhm.
It's a lot. We're talking a couple, like
Yes.
a couple $100,000 worth of work.
Right.
So,
Right. So Holden, if you email the city clerk, Barbara is not only chair of this committee, but she's the city clerk. And then she can pass that, and as soon as we get it from Jeff, she can pass that along to you. That's okay.
All right,
Thank you.
so we have kind of a direction. Thank you. so
Yeah, we have
much.
an
Yeah.
immediate direction with
And
a
a
more, I
broad
think as we
direction.
get through the immediate, like, what does year one look like? Year two, where does the condition assessment come in? Where does, I mean, I think that stuff is, I don't know about the conditioning, but I think a lot of the bigger ideas are further down the road, and it's to stabilize the trail and to bring forward this transition and making sure that everybody, knows what's going on, is okay mostly with what's going on. And go from there. Thank you for thinking so far. See, I mean, it's on my list of being concerned about, was the rail trail and what was going to happen. And, thank you for being so thoughtful and forward thinking, about what is, I don't know. There are two things. I don't think Easthampton would be where it is now. And that's one, the rail trail, and the other one is the pond. And they're both very fragile.
Yeah.
And the most fragile part of our cities, but it really puts us on the map. Outside of there, everybody absolutely loves it.
Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you again
Right.
and all the documents beforehand were really helpful.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Jeff, do you have 1 minute or do you have other things to talk about?
oh no, I'm good. I have a minute. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
I made
Thanks
some
for
notes.
coming. Yep.
I have a couple things I'm gonna try to help with.
All right.
Great, thank
Thanks.
you.
You can use it.
All right, great. So,
That is great. Wendy,
Yeah.
you've done a great job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really nice. Organizing all the thoughts
Well,
into one clear, concise nugget. That was good.
there's a lot, and just to not spend a lot of time just reviewing what we'd already sent out. 'Cause we had sent this
One
whole
of the
long
hardest
list.
things to do is to take the information that exists in your brain and has
Yeah,
accumulated
and
over
organize
years
it.
and to externalize it in a way that someone else.
Condense it.
can understand.
Yeah.
So, well done.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like I can at least sit down with Greg informally and kind of tell him what we want, the basics, and kind of see how he sees this all kind of flowing into the budget, season that's coming up very soon.
Right.
yeah.
So maybe like as soon as, I feel like I almost have to wait till the election's over, but I can at least, grab him in the hallway and say, let's find a time when, like, I can tell him what budgetarily wise,
Mhm.
what I write checks for and that kind of stuff. And so he can, guide us how we want to, and what he thinks for the budget.
How to move forward.
I think she's right, though, that there's some of the small, basic first things in the phase one there that they already do,
Oh, yeah.
right? They go around the empty trash
They-
at parks, and then she said they also have USA that goes and just empties barrels. So
The
I feel
dumpster,
like some of the things could be easy, but I really loved your idea of having an actual dedicated staff person.
Yeah, I think that's,
Because things happen on the trail. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you're there
Right.
all the time and you're like, oh
John's
my
like a
a
full-time employee.
tree fell.
An
But
unpaid
it's
employee.
funny also, just along that same line. So I had always thought they were gonna be negative about this, and then we're talking about a single, part-time person, and then Jeff goes, well, I think maybe you may need 2 full-time, so I think they're really behind this, which,
yeah.
kind of was
I
a
think it is
surprise.
important.
I think they realize the amount of work that it is and that we've been doing it and that it's grown past our scope of work. And I also think that Jeff, because he does this all the time, he has a legitimate say there that he's talking about, that we probably could have $200,000 worth of work to do out there. Cause
Right.
the reason I'm saying that is because I'm listening to all you're talking about with this pavement and how I know a lot of contractors and pavement has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
But then tree work's
Tree
not
work is
cheap. And so I
expensive,
went
yeah.
through with Felix on a bicycle built for two.
Mhm.
And I had him drive. And I said, slow down. And I took pictures.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And there's, I have an awesome bicycle built for two. And, but I mean, there is a lot of sketchy branches and trees.
Yep.
I mean, we're
Trees are-
talking, it could be $20,000. And actually, we only went from Coleman to downtown. I didn't go out to
All
Route
the way
5.
out, yeah.
I mean, that's the woodziest.
It is.
Besides just after Ferry,
Right.
it's a little woodsy there for a bit, but here's where it's really woodsy. And there's so many sketchy
Yeah.
trees between Coleman and Williston,
Right,
dead trees that are just gonna fall. And this happens in my yard. That's also
Right,
why
yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we could get, I can send these in an email, these pictures, but like what we talked about 2 meetings ago was that we would, maybe I could have a conversation with the arborist. Is that what it is? The position in the city?
Tree warden.
The
well,
tree
there
warden.
is no tree warden at the moment.
Oh, okay.
She left.
She got tired of all the jokes about her name.
Greenleaf, yeah.
But
That's amazing.
That's good. I mean, that could be part of the it is gonna be, so maybe Jeff's right. Maybe we should go for the big thing for the.
Right.
Well, so then the
But if
thing
it's gonna
is,
take 2 years to get an assessment, in the
Yeah.
meantime, a
Yeah.
tree, I don't want a branch coming down on somebody
Yeah, I mean,
walking and hurting them.
Well, if Bragg is becoming an arborist.
Well, then he might be
yes.
able to do some
And-
kind of assessment.
Yeah, I mean, they could go so that, I mean, he knows, and we have done some.
I could send him an email.
Well, let Barbara, I think you should
Yeah,
have
do
the
this
initial
first.
You can mention that
Yeah,
we
Yeah.
have,
yeah, because
some
when
data.
Sarah was here, that was when we did that they did a bunch of tree removal down kind of by the hockey rink.
right,
Yeah,
And
there's a
that
lot
was
more
spaced
down there.
after she went out and she, said some of these are really bad. So that's how that happened.
right.
It wasn't us, it was the
It was the
DPW.
city, yeah.
That same area is the same area that I spoke of like 2 years ago. And that same area still has 5, probably at least 3 or 4 dead trees that are gonna fall over, but also some really sketchy branches that are
Right over-
dead and
yeah.
fell against another branch and
Yeah,
now
and
could
it could
just fall on
shift.
the trail.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, if you
Are some
have,
of them
if
on
you have
private
all,
property?
if you have the pictures in a file, you could just send them to me.
Yeah, and send
As
them,
long as they're
send them to Greg.
labeled, are they just pictures or are they labeled like where they are? Cause cause if you just look at a
it's
tree,
hard to
you're-
label.
Yeah.
There, I did go in order,
okay.
right? So some of them have to be labeled between Coleman and the skating rink, because how
Yeah.
else do you say anything besides that? I
You'd
mean,
have
the
to have
old
GPS
crusty telephone
coordinates.
pole.
Right.
Yeah, or I could put pins on them, I suppose.
Well, if you have them in order, you should just say where you started but it would still be something that they'd have to go out and look. But-
Yeah,
Tie some caution tape or some ribbon around them and put a number on them. That would
that's a
be
good
the,
idea.
that'd be the
I
Alright.
mean, some of them are 20 feet in the air,
Yeah, but just the,
but yeah, yeah,
the
I
trunk.
see what you're saying, yeah. Okay,
And
that's a
then,
good idea.
then they'll know which.
maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll take a ride back through. Cause some of them are, I mean, I know that the chances of a dead limb falling at the exact moment when someone's riding through is slim. But, a lot of these are
It's
gonna
not zero.
break and fall soon. And if nothing else, they're gonna be across the trail. I was surprised at how many dead branches there are that are sketchy, like, there's 3 limbs coming up,
Yeah.
one's dead and it's leaning in between these 2 like
Right.
that. And it's just gonna go,
Yeah.
and they're this big.
They could kill somebody.
You sort of have to have an eye for that. That's why that arborist is a job, right? Because
Yeah.
if you just drive by and you're not looking I was specifically looking for it with a dedicated driver.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not gonna be able to do that when you're tying the things on the tree.
Slow way down, Felix.
Throw a dart. All right, Wendy and Liz, do you guys have any updates on the map?
No, I haven't, we didn't hear from Jake in the last few weeks. I guess we should check in with him. Do you want to do that?
I'll do that. I meant to write to him yesterday or today and I didn't do it. So I will check in with Jake.
Okay.
All right, so we've already got our next meeting date, which is November 27th. And that's when we're gonna start with the Friends meeting.
Oh, right.
Right, we're gonna send out the dues notices sometime this week or early next week.
Yeah.
It has the link already for the meeting, and Wendy, you can direct.
Well, the only thing we changed was, we increased the donations by a couple of bucks for each category, because with
$5.
inflation, I mean, the individual membership was $10, which
Yeah, I think we went up like,
I think we went up to, we went up $5.
$5.
Yeah.
So,
Just to get
no, that makes
more
sense.
realistic.
Yeah.
Will this be at 7 or 6?
I think it was 7.
7,
I
I
think,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So,
November 27th.
And does it start with the Friends part?
Yep.
And then we do our business after? We just say hello and goodbye?
Yeah, usually only 1 or 2 people show up.
right,
Right.
so. But I'll need to have
Especially
help
now
with
that
the
only
agenda
do
on
it
that
late
for
night.
members and
Back at
It feels
the
like it.
officers and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, I think the agenda will be, well, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I haven't what we've done in the past.
Yeah,
The treasurer's report, the
right.
minutes from the last meeting, elect the officers and.
Well, I think the transition, of the
Right.
maintenance will be the
Yep.
big topic.
All right,
Okay.
anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I'm assuming that Terry's gonna be doing the leaf blowing.
We're paying her. Yep.
Yeah.
That's why she,
Yeah,
I guess you've talked to her about the
well,
mower and
I did the change the oil.
I think she's already done a little bit of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did change the oil on both the blower and the
Yep.
mower.
Yep.
And I checked the brakes on the mower. They're pretty, they'll need work next year or this fall after leaf blowing, but it'll be fine for now.
Okay.
So I don't-
Yeah, she's been out. There has been some, she just sent me another, there's been some graffiti. There was a big area of graffiti on the wall down by the Millside Park. She did what she could, and then Greg was down there and they were looking at it and they thought they would be able to clean more of it off.
Yeah, most of it's gone.
Is it excellent? It's good, because she just sent me another, more vandalism. Sunday when I was out at South Street, one plastic bollard had been tossed nearby. I put it back and noticed the rod was still there, but the padlock was gone.
Oh, boy.
The metal rod is now missing from this one. Today, the other South Street bollard is now missing. It's padlocked. So I don't know what's going on.
One of the red covers, actually, I don't know if it's at Arthur or Gosselin. Someone actually, somehow tore it. So there's a chunk about this big out of the plastic, and then part of the plastic is kind of sticking a little bit away from the post. So
Is that one of
we should probably actually take that cover off.
I know Greg had bought some extra bollards. Now that's just a regular size one. It's not, the one at South Street is bigger.
Yeah, yeah,
So
you're
that's
right.
at
This
Goslin?
is not one of the, it's either Goslin or Arthur. I'm not sure which, there's 2. We put the
Yep.
truck signs on both of them.
Cause he had gotten some extras. And I wonder if he still has some more.
Someone bought a pair of bolt cutters probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that is thick.
Yeah, the lot.
Right.
It's a real lot.
But I know that, I was talking about the plastic,
Oh, right.
that they
Like, what's the
had
point
to
of
use
that?
some kind of tool to,
Because that's just the cover. They still can't, because the bollard is still there.
Yeah.
It's just-
right. They were just screwing around
Yeah.
and doing vandalism.
Speaking, did we ever find the screwdriver or whatever that tool needed to remove the anti-theft
No,
screw?
not that I know of.
Where's that?
There's a sign, from a donor that is no longer contributing.
It's sort of like you need a specialized
Yeah, it's
screwdriver or drill
Well,
bit.
yeah, that's why I'm asking.
It's a
Can you tell me where it is? Cause I have all those.
Oh,
I have the crazy
It's-
chip
it's
set.
By South,
I couldn't find it.
by
Yeah,
South
it's by
Street?
South Street.
Yeah,
Oh, if you
Yeah.
have, if you think you
Oh,
want.
you can-
Yeah, I can
It's
stop
a
Well,
over
if
and
you
walk
step
in.
towards Coleman Road from South Street, it's
Oh, I
it's
got
on the
you.
wooden fence. On the
Yeah.
left as you
Okay,
go
I'll
that
take care of
direction.
that. I have two different security vets.
Kind of old and
That's-
rusty.
How far away from South Street is?
What does the sign
Not
say?
far.
I don't wanna take the
It's,
wrong one.
outside,
Craig
right?
Delapena was one of the
Oh,
maintenance donor, when we had that adopt a
Okay.
section program, we no longer have that program
adopt a
and
sign.
haven't for years, so that
I mean, it's
sign
not much bigger
needs to
than
be removed.
this.
Yep,
It's
I know the
small.
one now.
And narrow.
Oh, and
Okay,
also
let me see
there's
if I have it.
a light, not quite behind the mills, just a little bit towards Union Street from the mills. Light number 14 is missing the cover of the access panel there at the base.
You can report that to on that reported thing.
To the
from
city.
DPW.
Well, if I know,
That's
you said it was
DPW.
like number
Yeah,
14. It's missing the cover
Yeah,
The access panel.
to access panel, and that's on the bottom, right? Is that,
yeah, it's on the bottom,
Is this Williston or behind the mills?
no, I
behind the mills.
just
Okay.
told Greg about that one.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, you don't want that stuff exposed. Oh,
It looks like somebody tried to tape it on at some
Can you
point.
send that to me?
Yeah, I'll do that when I
Okay.
get home.
And I'll send that with the message to Greg and see what they can do.
And actually, some of the numbers on the lights are gone, so you can't even identify which ones they are.
Oh, you mean like, right, they have a number on each one of those poles where they did at first. I don't know what they used, but a lot of the numbers are gone.
Right.
You can,
I mean, I think there's just like
were they,
16 of them that are numbered. It's just the ones, I think, from Union
Yeah.
Street up to the mills.
right.
Right.
And then the ones that are sort of the double ones behind the mills, I don't think are numbered.
No.
Right.
so is it painted on or,
No, it looked like, you know,
Stick
like the
on.
kind of thing you'd put on a house, like a reflective
oh, okay.
number.
It
That's
is
what looks
handy
like.
because
Yeah,
then
it
if
does
one's
come-
out.
I
Right.
reported
Yeah, I
a
mean,
couple of
How do you
the
identify 'em?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they need to be.
And there is one of the lights
labeled.
behind the mills. I think it's one of those where there's two, one of the ones hanging over like it's missing the glass or
Oh,
whatever.
really?
Oh, boy. All right, we should mention that too.
Behind them.
Yeah, I've been meaning to go through there when it's dark to see like if they're all working.
Right.
Right.
Has anybody heard anything about regarding the Southampton section? When's that gonna get started? Or-
I think it got moved to 27.
Yeah,
On the tip. So maybe it's not called.
I got an email today that they're having a meeting right about now to prepare for their big meeting in November where they're gonna have a big public presentation.
Oh, that's really good.
Who is
Yeah.
that? Is that their rail trail group or who?
Is it a consultant?
Yeah, the Friends of the Southampton. I
Okay.
can forward it to you all.
Okay,
Great.
please
Oh, I
do,
didn't know
yeah.
they had a new Friends.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
they've become much more active.
Southampton Greenway, I think it's called.
Yeah, I'll send it to you all and then you can see what they're up to.
Great.
Thank you.
Friends
so
of the
how
Friends.
far is that gonna extend? Up to Sheldon? Or-
It's gonna,
Just
yeah,
Sheldon.
it's gonna be Sheldon, and then after that, there's an active railway. And Westfield has been pretty actively working on
Yeah,
from
So,
downtown
that's a big
to,
connection right
There's a
there.
gap,
Westfield
there'll
to
be a
Southampton.
gap, yeah.
Well, that'll
For now.
increase Sheldon's.
but they also did say,
Ice cream shop, right?
I did see something about that. Like DOT wants to make a really large bike lane on Route 10
Yeah.
to fill the gap temporarily, like really large and safe
Oh,
though,
excellent.
like maybe not with something on the side of it, but like really wide and move the lanes over so that you could at least ride your bike if you're coming from Connecticut. When you get to Westfield, you can go up 10 and get to Sheldon's and then go.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Because that's the only direct way to do it. And meanwhile, Westfield has been in there. They've got like 3 different options that they had a meeting about last year. And I went to that meeting and
Oh, yeah.
let's just say that was a doozy. I'll leave
Yes,
it at that.
That's
That
putting it
was-
nicely.
Well, they've had all their bike trails basically like laid out, like by the committee pretty quickly. So they don't know what it's like to fight for a bike trail. So they're like, I can't go through my neighborhood. There's a lot of people chiming in.
Well, we had that problem in the beginning too.
Not too
Not as
bad.
bad.
Not too
Not bad
bad. We were lucky.
Well, they,
Okay.
one of the options was for it to go right down, you know, someone's neighborhood, like in their neighborhood, to get to one, from one place to the other. And that brought a lot of like, and you know, I gotta feel that, like, I wouldn't want the whole bike trail to get routed down my little cul-de-sac of my, you know,
Yeah.
neighborhood. It's not the best option probably. But there's a lot of obstacles down there. I don't understand why it seems to me like a no-brainer to just work out the rail with trail thing. It just should go down the railway.
The railroad is not cooperating. They don't want it.
Really? Did
So-
they just say hard no to that for sure?
That was the impression I got at that meeting, was the railroad did not want it. Rail with trail. But I don't know if anything's changed since that last meeting. That was a year ago. They were opposed to it.
Yeah, they're concerned about
I mean, they
liability.
got it in Northampton.
What a fence.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
It's not even like a real active line. It's just a place they park cars.
Maybe they don't want everyone to know that they parked their cars.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, so November 27th.
Yep.
Right after Thanksgiving. Okay. All right, thanks, everybody.
I'll be full that
Okay.
night.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.